Can Jonathan Gannon build the right team around Kyler Murray at quarterback? We'll answer that next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite NFL draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. What's up, guys? It's your boy, Damian Parson. You can find me on Twitter at DP_NFL with my guy. The champ is here again, right beside me. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, everyone? This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst at the Draft Network. And like my guy DP always introduces, man, 2019 national champion LSU Tigers, man, here to bring some championship level conversation around the NFL draft, NFL teams, NFL philosophies moving forward. So DP, why don't you go ahead and get this thing started with our sponsor so we could jump straight into this Arizona Cardinals content.
For sure, man. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. And Keith, you talked about the Arizona Cardinals, and they made their decision, right? They're the final domino to fall in terms of head coaching search. They hired former Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, Keith, to be their new head coach, going in a different direction, right? They have a new GM that they pulled from the Tennessee Titans, front office, and now they have a new coach. And this time it's not a offensive guru, right? It's not that with like they had Cliff Kingsbury. They have a defensive-minded coach now, Keith. And I just want to get your initial reaction to the news that Jonathan Gannon was going to take over for this team.
Man, so we talk about to what they always say, to know your future is to know your past, right? And I from the perspective of the hire of Jonathan Gannon, I think it's totally different from what they've done in the past, right? When we talk about Cliff Kingsbury and the air raid and everything that's going on, but I think Jonathan Gannon, is inheriting something to where when we look at past draft philosophy, it was almost, what were they doing? And DP, you're well experienced, you're well known with this Arizona Cardinals team in the past couple of years. So to talk about the team that they have, right? Because in order to rebuild, you need to identify the issues. So moving forward, I think we should talk about their past draft philosophy and where that leaves them now. So in your opinion, what is this roster right now, and where are the holes?
The holes right now. Corner it's been a hole since like Patrick Peterson was getting older, and it's like you know what I'm saying, you always want to have a predecessor or heir to the throne, right? To step in when that star has left, and they never did that. Yeah, they tried to push Byron Murphy to that spot, but having a true CB1, they have not figured that part out when under Steve Keim. And you look at man, to me. Also, pass rush, edge rush. Yeah, they double dip with Cam Thomas and Myjai Sanders last year. But at the same time, like, you didn't play them enough. So at the same, we don't even know what these kids are truly capable of, right? So now Gannon has to come in like, all right, this is going to be a little different. Do they fit what I want to do? Because we know that's a big part of the NFL. You were drafted, but you weren't drafted to do what I want you to do or what I want to run. Also, I think, losing J.J. Watt was big. Zach Allen, who's the other interior defensive lineman, he's an unrestricted free agent. So you got interior D-line, you got edge, you got corner. Dare I say receiver, because they're talking to trading, and I think it's going to happen, trading DeAndre Hopkins, right? But like the draft philosophy over the past couple of years, Keith, with Steve Keim, under the helm, which I know a lot of Arizona Cardinals fans are happy that he's not in that position anymore. It was a fearful one, a fear to mess up, right? Like, so you're not going to take swings. You're going to trade picks for veteran players and overpay and all these different things instead of, you know what, let's draft and develop guys. And they haven't done that well. And I'm hoping because Jonathan Gannon being on the staff with Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen and being with Howie Roseman and seeing how they've done things and developed guys, I'm hoping that he brings some of that to that team.
Yeah, so they have to become more balanced, right? Because you talked about Jonathan Gannon. He's coming in. He's a 4-3 scheme guy, and they used to run a 3-4. So talk to our listeners, right? So you're talking about overhauling the defensive line because a traditional 3-4, defensive line does not fit a 4-3, right? Like there will be some positional things that just quite frankly don't fit. And to talk about draft, right? You talk about last year, like Amaje Sanders is interesting where he's going to play. But I will say this: I think Cameron Thomas. Now he may have a
You took the
starting
words out of my
position.
mouth, Keith.
Yeah, in a 4-3 scheme. So it's going to be an overhaul, man. I think that the Cardinals, that this was the first domino to fall as far as with the Cardinals and going into a totally new system. There's going to have to be a lot of players, man. This roster is going to be overturned. It's going to be overhauled because it's going to be a whole new system, man. And then you even talk about offensively, right? Past draft philosophy. It's been, in my opinion, it's been receivers, receivers, receivers. Like, just continue to double down on what we've seen isn't working, and then let's continue to try to do it, right? It didn't work. All right, let's add one more wide receiver. Okay, that didn't work. Let's
That'll
add
fix
one.
The whole problem right there.
Yeah, we just keep adding wide receivers, and man, there's no balance. So I'll be interested to see how how the new GM, how head coach Jonathan Gannon comes in and they kind of stabilize this, because I really think that it needs to be a more balanced approach, right? Like that the Arizona Cardinals need to be a more balanced approach. I get it. Cliff Kingsbury air raid, that might be all he knew was throwing the football. But that's a Cardinal problem, right? Like you shouldn't hire a head coach where all he knows is how to throw the football. So that's a Cardinals problem. And listen, throwing the football, we're talking about Kyler Murray, man. We can't not mention him, right? He's coming off of ACL. He's the Arizona Cardinals franchise quarterback. So I want to ask the question coming up, DP, how do you build around Kyler Murray?
What is America's #1 sports book? FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that makes betting on sports fun and easy. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from money line, player props to point spread. FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use, guys. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So I suggest that you go join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/locked on to claim your no sweat first bet. That's FanDuel.com/locked on. Make every moment matter with FanDuel.
Keith, I love the question. How do you build
around? Question. That is $1 million question,
right? Because he just got paid. So he just got paid M's on top of M's on top of M's, right? How do you build around him? And I think it starts with, for one, a competent defense, Keith. The defense, to me, has been lackluster for years. And I think that because, playing quarterback, when you don't have a good defense, you press because you're like, oh, we got to score every drive. We got to score on every single drive we have, right? So I think that's a big part of this, Keith, is being able to build up the defense to where the defense not only gets stops, they can get big timely sacks, turnovers, and you've got some pieces there. I like what Marco Wilson is starting to become. Buda Baker is one of the best safeties in football. Thompson, who was his running mate at safety, does a lot of different things. You got to figure out the linebacker situation too. With Isaiah Simmons coming up on his 5th-year option and all that stuff, Zaven Collins taking a step. They got to get this defense well-rounded, Keith. And that's why I love the hire of Gannon from the aspect of he's a defensive-minded coach. He's not going to ignore that side of the football. This man knew what he had in Philly and what they were coaching with. So the first part of getting Kyler Murray and building around it is building up that defense.
No, I agree. Building the defense, and I'll say this, right? Offensively, they have to be more balanced, man. They have to be more balanced.
Stop the shootouts. Stop the
shootouts, man. I go back to two years ago when they played the Los Angeles Rams, and I believe that was Kyler Murray's first playoff game. And that was Matthew Stafford's, first playoff game with the Los Angeles Rams, right? And both teams seemed to struggle a little bit early, right? Like it was, offensively, they seemed to struggle a little bit. And you've seen Sean McVay, he had an identity of, let's get Matthew Stafford comfortable, man. Let's run the football. Let's get him comfortable. And then you look on the opposite sideline, right? Cliff Kingsbury, he's telling Kyler Murray, man, keep throwing it. keep going after it, right? If it don't work, keep on doing it. Keep on doing
From
it.
your 4 yard line, drop 15 yards back and just let it go.
And let it go, man. And you're talking about at that point what Kyler was a second, third year player. So first playoff game, of course, there's playoff jitters. So I don't think there was anything to protect Kyler Murray. So while Kyler Murray, listen, he came from Oklahoma, right? It's a version of the air raid offense. Then he gets with Cliff Kingsbury, version of the air raid offense. I don't have a problem with Kyler's play style. I have a problem with the structure of the identity of the team. The identity of the team needs not to be just Kyler Murray putting everything on his shoulders. They need a run game, man. You need a draft, draft some of these offensive linemen, get them, get the run game going, draft a real running back. I get it, James Conner, he had his flashes when he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he's years past it. Get a real running back, man.
It's a good season in 2021. You know what I mean? He had a good season in 2021, Keith, but, and not to cut you off, but he had a good season in 2021. But I didn't think that was worth paying him a 3-year deal, right? Like, there's too many talented, dynamic, versatile running backs coming in the draft year after year. And this is another class. They drafted the young kid. They drafted Keontae Ingram, I believe. He was at Texas his final year
USC.
after transferring. Okay. Yeah, I knew he was at Texas, then he transferred to USC. So, like, you had him, right? And he looked solid in spurts. But he was a late round pick. Third, fourth round this year with the type of talent that's going to be on the board, I would probably go get another running back, Keith. I would grab a tie, just get a home run hitter and just kind of prepare yourself for, because James Conner battles injuries too. He's not a healthy, he's a big, physical downhill running back that sometimes, Keith, you ever play pickup basketball with that big guy who's supposed to be in the paint, catching the rebounds and getting the layups, and he out the corner?
He's shooting threes.
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nobody's under the rim. Sometimes that's James Conner, where you say, man, get 4 yards up the middle. And James is like, I'm Reggie Bush. I'm gonna jump cut this thing, and I'm gonna get out there. And they're like, okay, you 18-wheeler, we just got you, right? Like, that's what the defense wants. They don't want you to go. They want you to go east and west, not north and south. So I think that's a big part. But you said, building up the O-line, especially the interior, Keith. Like, Rodney Hudson battled injuries
for our listeners, and I know you've watched the Cardinals in depth. What are the specific positions that need to be addressed in your opinion for the Cardinals offensive line?
Guard and center. I think they're good at tackle. DJ Humphries, they gave an extension to. When he got hurt, they saw Josh Jones, who they drafted out of Houston, and they finally put him at left tackle, and he looked really good playing his natural position and not being kicked in at guard. So I think the tackle spots are fine because Kelvin Beachum is going to be a free agent, and you don't re-sign him. You keep the cheaper options in terms of Josh Jones, who's still on a rookie deal, and then you have DJ Humphrey. Rodney Hudson, like, he's battled injury since you traded for him from the Raiders. But Keith, COVID got him, back in 2021. But then this past offseason, he contemplated retiring. So it's like, this man might actually retire and go be with his family like he thought about last offseason. So you got to prepare yourself. Yes, they drafted, two or three young offensive linemen late, last year. But at the same time, those guys were either hurt or they just didn't get a chance to play.
Yeah.
They have Will Hernandez, so he played solid when he was healthy. So you may be able to get him on a nice 2-year deal or something like that. But I think he was only brought in because Shane, the Krugler, who's the coach that was fired midseason after their game in Mexico for groping a woman or whatever in the world he had going on. I think that was the guy that was fired. So you might not bring Will Hernandez back now because his offensive line coach from college ain't on the staff anymore. So I think interior offensive line at guard, probably both guard spots, and center, or at least one guard and at least a center, because you need to be prepared for if Rodney Hudson gets closer to training camp, he's like, you know what, man, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I want to be with my wife and my kids and be at home. So those are the two main spots on the offensive line that they need to shore up.
Yeah. So DP, listen, we talked about the problems, right? We talked about the past. We talked about the present, right? But we have to talk about the future, man. We're about to fix the Arizona Cardinals via the draft. So coming up, man, we're going to talk about what players and prospects we have identified that we think can immediately help and impact the Arizona Cardinals heading into the 2023 season.
Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. If you're a football fan that loves gaming apps and you want to experience how to lead and control a franchise, this gaming app is for you. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, and navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season. We've created Locked On League for you to compete against other Locked On fans all over the world. Can you be the ultimate Locked On football GM? Choose the Locked On League in the app to join. Locked On NFL Draft listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On, all caps, in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app in the App Store. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM starts your dynasty today.
Keith, I give you shout outs, brother, because you deserve it. Like your segues, my man, are just getting. They're just improving. They're day after day. Reps, guys.
I'm working, man. I'm working.
Reps. You know what I'm saying? Practice doesn't make perfect. It makes improvement. So, you know what I mean? Reps, baby. But like you talked about, looking at the future, Keith, of this Arizona Cardinals, like they have the third pick in the draft, right? They have the third pick. They're prime territory.
It's so many ways they can go with this. So many ways,
Keith. We talk about the Bears possibly trading out. I think the Cardinals could trade out, right? What if Carolina says, man, let's say someone moves up to one and gets Bryce Young or Will Levis, right? And Carolina said, man, we need CJ Stroud, right? And they want to leapfrog the not the Texans, but say the Texans pick a quarterback or whatever they do with that pick. And you got the Cardinals at 3 right in front of the Indianapolis Colts, right? Someone moves up, say, hey, listen, let us come up from 9. Carolina said, let's come from 9. Let us come up to 3. And we got a lot of picks for you. First round next year. We got multiple thirds. We got 2 seconds. We got a lot of stuff that we can work out here, right? And they can trade back, Keith. But if they don't trade back, with this addition of Jonathan Gannon, I don't foresee them sticking with that Vance Joseph 34, that odd front, right? With 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers. I think they go more 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers in their base. Keith, what do you do here? Do you go Will Anderson if you stay at 3, or do you go Jalen Carter?
Man, okay, so that we haven't got into our prospect profiling, right? Where we just, kind of really go through the prospects. But just to give a little snippet into how I feel Will Anderson versus Jalen Carter, I think Will Anderson is more of a 3-4 outside linebacker. So if they kept that 3-4 scheme, that should have been somewhere where they should go. But if they're switching to a 4-3, go with Jalen Carter, man. Like you see how impactful an interior defensive lineman is for a defense, man. You're talking about a guy that can single-handedly wreck everything up front. And then you're talking about like a culture changer as far as his play style, right? Like you want your defense to play like that. I get it that the NFL is changing the rules, they're making the NFL soft, but guess what? I need somebody that gets really close to that line of personal foul / I'm just invoking a physical temperament, right? I need that guy on my defense, and especially at the defensive line, because now, guess what? Now you have the linebackers. Now the linebackers that you've invested in, Xavier Collins and Isaiah Simmons, maybe they're a little bit better, right? Because now that they're clean up front, they don't have anybody consistently climbing to them. And then you know what they say, man, if you fix the front, the back end will be better, right? So you add some of those pieces to it. So I would probably go Jalen Carter. If I'm sitting at pick 3 and had to take a pick at pick 3, I go with Jalen Carter over Will Anderson. Not saying that I think he's a better prospect, but if it's a 4-3 scheme, I trust the transition of Jalen Carter to a 4-3 more than Will Anderson to a 4-3.
Correct. I'm with you 100% on that, Keith. And like you said, just a simple fact of, if you're going to play 4 down lineman, man, you think about the top D tackles in the NFL right now. Of course, Aaron Donald. You think Jeffrey Simmons, Kenny Clark in Green Bay. Man, there's a lot of Quinnen Williams, right? There's a lot of disruptive dudes that command double teams. Sometimes you try to slide the center and a tackle and the guard over there. You want to max protect and do different things because that's the quickest pass to the quarterback, right? And in this division where you have San Fran, who wants to run the ball and play action and some longer developing plays off the play action. You think about Matthew Stafford with the Rams, right? And then you got Geno Smith and that the weapons they have in Seattle, you want to be able to, one, stop the run, which Jalen Carter can do on the interior, but you also want to get into the backfield on those key third downs and make the play. Aaron Donald made the play of the Super Bowl versus the Cincinnati Bengals when he sacked Joe Burrow and essentially ended the game. It's solidified. What did he do? He said, "Ring me, baby." Like, that's what he said when he walked after the sack. Ring me. So you need these type of guys, Keith. And not only that, but like, all right, so you go there, and then, like you said, you look at Cody Mock, because the offensive system is going to be very. I think it's going to be different, Keith. Like, you're not going to see that air raid stuff as much as like we saw with Cliff Kingsbury. And I hope that they would get more physical on the offensive line. So on day 2, like, you're at the top of the second round, Cody Mock is there, man. I think that's a move you make on the interior offensive line at the guard position, and let's solidify that, right? This is how you build this team up through the draft. Or, dare I say, Keith, trade back, Chris Gonzalez, Joey Porter Jr., Jonathan Gannon knows what he had with James Bradbury and big play Darius Slay out on the islands, right? He needs to get some of that going in Arizona.
Yeah, so the Cardinals are in a good position, DP, because they have a franchise quarterback, right? And I know everybody, it's Kyler Murray. Listen, he's good enough to win games, right? And
talented enough.
Yeah, he's talented enough to win games. So that's why I'm calling him a franchise quarterback. Not saying he's a top 5 guy, but he's a talented enough quarterback. He's a franchise quarterback. You paid him the money. So you sitting at pick 3, like you said, you can trade back. Then you have, a second, third, fourth round pick, right? To where you can kind of fill out some things. But what I'm quickly realizing, you hinted at it earlier, that this is not the same receiving core. AJ Green has retired. If you trade DeAndre Hopkins, you don't have DeAndre Hopkins anymore. So something that has been a strength of your team, passing the football and having a good receiving core, right? Like Christian Kirk, he's in Jacksonville now. So this receiving core is depleted. So I want to ask you on top of that, right? Receiver-wise, where do you go with this? Because if you trade DeAndre Hopkins, your best wide receiver is probably a wide receiver 3 across the NFL. So where do you go from here? Because you have to address it through the draft. You have to draft some wide receivers.
Man, that's a great question, Keith, and you're 100% correct. You have to go at receiver in this draft if you trade DeAndre Hopkins. If you trade DeAndre Hopkins, depending on who you trade him to, you're more than likely going to get another day 2 pick, right? You're going to get a day 2 pick. Having Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, I think you got to re-sign Greg Dortch, right? You got to keep the mini twins because people talk about them both being short. Short kings live and rule. So I say you try and keep Greg Dortch. They traded for Robbie Anderson right before the draft, or right before the trade deadline, in the middle of the season. I think he can be a nice number 2 option.
Yeah, you listed those names, but are any of them number 1s, right? Like,
no, and that's what I'm about to get to. You got to figure this out, right? Like, you have to look at this receiver class, right, and say, all right, a Keyshawn Butte, a Rashee Rice in the second. Like, if these guys were to be available at the top of the second round.
Is there any chance you go Quentin Johnston? If Quentin Johnston comes in, he drives up the hype. You're talking about 6'4", 215 pounds. He goes listen, he lays down a 4.35 at the combine, right? He everything interviews well. He runs well. We watching him with the dreads run around. Yeah, like just everything looks perfect. Do you take him in the top 10? Because if they trade back from pick 3 to maybe pick 10-ish, right, or whatever Carolina picks is at pick 8, do you take him? Because like you need a difference maker, right? Like we don't need just another Rondale Moore. We don't need just another Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson has been in the league for 8 years. So do you draft a difference maker right there? Because I mean, it's out of him, Jordan Addison for some people, and Jackson Smith for some people. But you talk about the elite athlete. The guy that can change things in this draft is Quentin Johnston. So do you take Quentin Johnston top 10 to help fix this team?
Yes. Yes. Without question. You go, like we talked about in the last segment, how do you build around Kyler Murray? I said go defense if you're going to stay at 3. But, man, if you trade back to 9, 7, or 9, right, you know darn well that both Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are already off the board by the time those picks come. So no matter how the trade shake up, if you're at 7 or 9, neither one of them are going to be available. You go Quentin Johnston, because now you're giving your talented quarterback, who I believe is a top 12 quarterback in this league, right? Your franchise QB, you're giving him that guy that can change the game for you. And he's one of the better deep ball throwers when he's on in the game. Man, Keith, that's big. Like
I like it. I like it.
I love that.
I
I
like
love
it. I
that. As a
like it.
Kyler
Pair
Murray
Kyler
guy, I
Murray.
love that, Keith.
Yeah, and you have enough supplemental pieces, right, that can kind of get this guy going a little bit, get over the rookie things. There are enough experience
Size
wide
in the
receivers,
receiver room.
but you still need the ceiling. You need the guy with the high ceiling, and that's Quentin Johnston.
Nah, for sure. And like you said, you get that size and that profile. That's what you need, right? Because then again, building it like your basketball team, that's your power forward, your center, and now you got some slashers and some long range shooters around them, and that can really open some things up and make that passing offense more efficient and more well rounded. Man, listen, great discussion about the Arizona Cardinals. Man, new coach, they got to figure some things out in terms of just the offense they're going to run, how to build around Kyler Murray and everything. But man, it's going to be an exciting time in the desert if they do it correctly, Keith. But guys, as always, we thank y'all so much for joining us again. You know what we always tell you: go on YouTube, like, subscribe, share the YouTube channel, but hit the ding, hit the bell so that you are notified whenever we drop fire hot content. And then, of course, for the audio portion, we're available on all your favorite audio podcasting apps. Go in there, like, subscribe, download, share, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. And all of you and your friends, leave 5-star reviews and comments for us, because we're consistently trying to build. But man, we thank y'all so much for making Locked On NFL Draft Podcast your first listen today. All right, we appreciate it so much as we get ready for the weekend. For Keith Sanchez, you can find him on Twitter at TheTalentCode. And I'm Damian Parson at DP_NFL. Come through and join the conversation again. No, Monday, not tomorrow, but Monday, because the weekend's coming up here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.